Hello, friends, and thank you for joining me. I wanted to jump on here and share um, my journey that began. It's been most of my life because everything just stems from our childhood. However, I have been on a discovery of some patterns and things that were happening in my life, and it got to a point where it just became so dark that I just stepped back and I pretty much deleted what was going on in my life so that I could be present and powerfully deal with what was going on with me. And I'm glad I made that decision, as hard as it was. For me, engaging with people and being social and being engaged in my community that's in my business, and just being engaged with people is really important to me. However, gosh, the last time I even sent an email out to my community, it was like September of last year. So, and I just wrote an email, and that's what inspired me to create this video. And I also told my Facebook community that I would also be sharing my, this previous journey that I was on, where I just was in this dark place. And 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 then what really just transpired from that, and how I worked through it, and what the fuck's been going on now these days with me, right? So so I noticed that almost every winter for the past few years seemed to be a pretty intense time for me. And I, finally had, after getting some healing sessions and coaching of my own, I was able to start, coming into winter, the season winter, more relaxed, more calm, and taking better care of myself, mentally, physically, and emotionally. And so so it got a little easier for me, and being more present to what I need. And as far as, what I've accomplished over the past few months, what you just self-reflecting and taking care of myself, and while taking care of my family. So anyways, I was on a discovery of my own self-worth. And it's something that I don't think I was necessarily resisting it. I just wasn't really aware or even ready, I think, to just really discover my own self-worth. And, I've done a lot of healing work, a lot of past healing work around sexual abuse and, physical and emotional abuse from my childhood. I've overcome many things using the tools and the modalities that I've gained over the years. You know, it's been quite an up and down for me as far as like healing. It's just healing is an always going process, and it gets better over time. And I know there's lots of times where I can just work right through stuff pretty quickly. And this time, though, I really fell into a really dark place. I was really experiencing a lot of thoughts around resentments and guilt and shame, and I have to admit that a lot of that, like at a surface level, I was touching on it, poking at it, and I just was like not very clear on what it was that I was dealing with. I didn't know it had anything to do with self-worth. I just knew that the people that were showing up in my life and the things that were going on in my life were a pattern, of events that would show up here and there, and I would deal with it, and then they would go away for a while. However, this time it got really loud, and when I looked back on it, I realized that I was asking for clarity, and because I wasn't feeling like I was getting the kind of results that I should be getting in my business, and I was really, really held back in wanting to do live streams. Like, I'm completely good with, doing a live stream where I'm interviewing people. I love my podcast. I love doing summits, and so I've just been on this self-discovery of who am I really, getting to the nitty-gritty of who I am. And I turned 47 this year, and I'm also going through physical changes that women go through, and this expansion was the very expansion that I was seeking. And so now it's so just to give you a little history, or some background really. So where the resentments were coming from was I really started to just what I had to do was really step back and look at the bigger picture, because at that point it was really just a bunch of puzzle pieces for me. And I was, trying to piece pieces here together and pieces there together, and I wasn't able to get any clarity on it. And so then I started working on, like, I want clarity on what's, this pattern, or these particular patterns that kept showing up in my life. My question for me was, why do I continue to attract toxic people in my life? Now, look, I've always believed that people are in our life for a good reason. It's an opportunity for us to reflect on, who are we being in the world? And sometimes people show up in our life to either mirror back at us what it is that we need to work on for ourselves. And maybe they're mirroring back all the great parts of ourselves, because I've got some extraordinary friends. And then there was, there are people who you project on, right? So I'm always being aware of my thoughts and my triggers. What are the things that trigger me most? Sometimes they're subtle triggers, sometimes they're big triggers, and when I say triggers, I'm talking about reactions to things that are happening in life, whether it be circumstances, your environment, or the people you're around. So what was going on in my life was huge. And the pattern of being verbally abused is just like, it seemed to be always there. And I'm like, okay, I was constantly being responsible for myself. But what I started thinking was like, why is it that I'm so apologetic all the time? Like, I want to be responsible, but I also don't want to lose my power. I feel so inauthentic that I'm apologizing for something, that I wasn't even really sure that I'd be apologizing for. So I was just always apologizing. And, a lot of things that I learned over the past 5 years, when I especially got into doing online summits, hearing from some top experts from around the world, authors, thought leaders, mindset leaders, like a good variety of healers, and it was amazing what I learned just from those summits that I created. I had spoke to over 40 people from around the world, and then of course my podcast, like, I'm constantly like just sucking up this really juicy, good knowledge. And when I first heard about, it was when my daughter, not long after my daughter was born, I had started noticing I was, having resentments. Um, and, I worked through those. And the resentment is that I was like, all of a sudden, here I'm having a fifth child after already raising my four adult children. And then suddenly I'm having another child. And so I was having resentments that I was staying home while my husband traveled and wasn't, working and doing his thing. And so I had resentment towards him. And as bad as this might sound, I had resentment with my daughter. And then I worked through it. I discovered that I had a resentment, and because I was grouchy and irritable, and then I realized like what that was about. So that's what I'm saying. Like this stuff comes up, and our emotion or our feelings are these indicators of where we're at, and it always begins with thoughts. And so, anyway, so I'm like, it started there really for me, and I'm living my life. I'm doing things that I love. I'm around the people that I love, and when there was people that I didn't really want to be in love with, bam, they were gone. Um, you know, I really have put a lot of effort into growing my business as a coach and as an expert in what I'm up to. And I was still struggling. And so, and I would get like all these great little aha moments, realizations of things about what's going on in my life. And so, so I'm just going with the motions, right? However, last April, what showed up was just, it took me out. It really just took me out. And the last time I remember like coming to a point in my life where I was feeling depressed and like hopeless about life was like back in 2009 and before my big transformation in 2010. And so I knew this was deep, and I knew I needed to really do the work, and it was going to take some work to work through whatever it was that was coming up for me. So just a little background. First off, it was all about toxic people. And there was some people in my life that I pretty much kept a distance from, because they're complainers, they're gossipers, they're negative naysayers. They have something negative to say about somebody or something in life. They're always poor mouthing people. They were always, that to me is like the negative meaning for being selfish. Um, and they would have moments where they're being kind and loving and giving and contributing, but the most of the time, 95% of the time, they were just these negative energy drainers. And I love them. I love them very much because they've been in my life for 24 years. Well, 23 now, but it's 23 years, sorry. Anyway, so we had a history where, and these are family, like this is family, okay? There was a history of verbal abuse, sexual abuse, and when I'm talking about sexual abuse as an adult, I was experiencing being come on to, and they were overstepping their boundaries in that relationship, like they were overstepped. And what I noticed was, there was what happened years ago, and then then there was like we wouldn't have any contact with them for years, and then we'd come back together again, and it would get shoved under the rug. Nothing would ever get talked about. And then when I got involved in training and developing myself in ontological living, I and had my big breakthrough, which one of them was like, I'm the creator, I'm the responsible party of my life. Um, and I actually, like, went and apologized, and apologize that there was, like, this stuff had to happen for us to go through, and ask for forgiveness, and then I forgave them, and so, like, I really took responsibility and got complete with that stuff. And the thing is like, that first time it happened, then it happened again, and I did the same thing again, and then it happened again, and then I did the same thing again. And what I started getting to was this point where I felt like I was having this battle with myself about, like, where do you draw the line in all this shit? You know what I mean? Um, and I struggled with it. So the best way for me to deal with it was to just not, like, be around them. So anyways, so then we have some new family that comes into the picture, and they're, bless their heart, they're disabled, they have a lot of issues, and they were no different but worse, almost worse than the other people. Anyways, I got caught up in and sucked into, by choice, that to get caught up into the family drama, and at times I would speak up and say, look, I don't even want to be a part of this. Like, get me out of, I don't want you talking about it or whatever. Like, I just said, I don't want to be a part of that. But then I was still being pulled into, how can I help them? And feeling like I was responsible in, how can I help them? So anyway, so, I was really, like, in this place of being a victim, while I was also in a place of being a martyr. And I wasn't a stand for me and what is important to me in my life, and I just was putting my wants and needs and things off to the side, and just allowing all this to go on. And that's the thing, like, that was the exact thing, like, I couldn't figure out, like, why am I struggling with saying, like, enough is enough, here's the line in the sand, and don't fucking step over it, like, what's wrong with that? But for me, I was really, really, really having a hard time with that. And so I knew there was some work to do, but I couldn't do it until I dealt with what was happening. And so I did. I dealt with what was happening so that I could have some space to really look at the bigger picture of what was going on. And that's what, back in September, is when I decided I need to take a step back, delete what I'm doing, and just clear my head and really focus on being with and creating a space for myself that would allow for healing to happen. And in that, um, what I was doing is, I'm asking myself questions, inquiring into, why would I have those kinds of people in my life? What is happening? What is it that I'm not seeing that I need to see? And eventually what I discovered was, it was all around self-worth. I was not worthy of having healthy relationships. I'm not worthy of, or deserving to be respected and treated like someone of value. And I really dishonored myself as a human being. And speaking my truth always turns out to, for me in my mind at that time, my speaking my truth was, like, always like something was wrong. I always felt like I was maybe losing my mind. Did I, maybe it is my fault, or I don't remember saying that. It was, I literally felt like I was losing my mind, and questioning my power, and not trusting my own, truth. and just embracing that authenticity. So when I started, so I needed to figure out what was going on. And I realized that what I was discovering is there was some codependency going on. There is, and like a really bad form of communication, because what I done was is I also stepped back and really started to look at my children's lives and what's going on with them and their relationships. And because we are the ones, we are the role models, and they're a mirror. And so I'm like, okay, so what do I need to see? What's going on in my life? And I realized too, like I have my daughter who I was also doing things for her, like I was resenting that I'm constantly doing things for everybody else and giving my time and my energy, and while I while I'm over here like exhausted and feeling like, well, nobody even cares what I do. Um, they're not valuing me, so I'm like caught up in this battle with myself. Am I actually like I'm giving so much of myself that I lost me, and it become a horrible nightmare. And, I've walked away from doing things that are important to me in my life for other people. I have given up on things that brought me joy because I was too busy taking care of everybody else and lost myself in that. And I wanted to get to the bottom of it. So that's when I found the book by Nancy Levin, Boundaries Will Set You Free. And like, I don't like the word boundaries, okay? I think that's for me, it feels like a negative word. It doesn't feel like it like creates a world of what's possible that I live in, because the world that I live in, everything or anything is possible. And so I felt like boundaries was not the word for me. However, the book is a powerful book. It's amazing. I love the tools that Nancy provides in this book, because it has helped me along this path that I had been on in discovering my self-worth. Another book that I read was Extreme Self-Care by Cheryl Richardson. I actually started with that book, and I'm like, okay, so obviously there's more to just going to the spa, getting my nails done, or, so I knew there was like this piece missing. I just could not figure it out. And it was so loud with everything going on that I just, yeah, I was so happy to finally just step back. And it broke my heart that I had to stop, working on my business, and I had to let that go, because like what I do will always be around, and I'm only a better version of myself and what I provide and value for others. And so I hope that what I'm sharing with you is somehow serving you in your own life. Um, because look, the fact is, like, there's so many women out there who are experiencing what I'm experiencing, and they could be at different levels or different and showing up in different ways in your life. And so I hope that whatever I'm sharing with you will inspire you to step back and be with that darkness, and not let it consume you by resisting it, avoiding it, or pretending it's not there, because it will show up. It will manifest in your body, as mine did. It started manifesting in my body, in my spine, and in by having tons of headaches. I started having more headaches, and the chronic pain that I had overcome back in 2010 and 11, like, was suddenly there again. And so it will manifest in your body. And um, so my heart knows I know what to do to work through these things, right? And, so I started with first off just working through what are the resentments that I'm carrying around? What is it that I'm resenting? Who am I resenting? Why am I resenting them? And really just getting, in depth about that. And then looking at the shame and revealing the shame that I was experiencing. A lot of the shame that I was feeling was the shame that I was feeling was all about how I kept abandoning myself and my truth and ignoring the fact that I was like over caring, over mothering, um, overdoing for other people. And then when I finally would sit down to do something for myself in my business, or, you know, there was like always something said about it, or, you know, um, I just felt pulled, like I was like being ripped in half by what I was thinking and what was showing up in my life. And how do I serve versus over caring or over giving or overdoing. I was giving away my services for free. It was hard for me to walk away from somebody who I can see they're extraordinary and they have this amazing, these amazing skills and abilities to share with the world. And it was hard for me to say, I can't help you. Instead, I would help them anyway. And I even started feeling, so I was feeling guilty about having, to even say, I can't help you. So I would start looking for excuses or reasons. Um, it was horrible, you guys. I can't tell you enough how horrible I I suddenly started to put all this together and seeing like, what is this about? And then I was like, okay, well, Susan, like, what are you going to do about this? And that's, do what I do best. First off, what I know is because I grew up in poverty, that I developed an advantage of being a getter, like a strong go-getter, and I don't give up. I won't give up on family. I don't give up on myself. And I have been to many moments of my life where I wanted to give up, one time almost to a point where I was ready to kill myself. That's how bad it got. Um, but that was the last time that I was like, I won't give up. I'm not ever going to give up because I have my kids. I have my daughter, and my kids and my daughter are like the most important, including my grandbabies now. Now I have four grandchildren and another one on the way. So I'm like, I want to be the best version of a grandma and a best version of mom and the best version of myself. So that way when I leave the world, I can lay in my, you know, bed before I die and just even falling asleep at night and just feel good about my day. Like that's what I enjoy. Um, and so if you're not getting up and feeling joyful and excited about starting your day, or going to bed feeling super exhausted and just drained from your day and thinking about tomorrow, we could do some work here, you guys. I'm telling you, because it's not a place to be living. Nobody wants to live like that. But at the same time, they also don't know how to have a life where it's calm, peaceful, joyful, and alive and exciting. Um, where you actually just say you can love your life. You love every aspect of it. So anyway, so on this journey, like I finally realized, holy crap, like after going through doing that deep inner work and just being with the dark space. And when I say darkness, for me it was I became really withdrawn. I started experiencing stuff in my body. I pull away. I'll dabble, but I'm back here, like I'm just back here. And But for me, this time, I actually pulled myself completely out of the game. I had to bench myself, you guys. Um, anyway, so what I discovered was, first off, it is super important to be aware and acknowledge that we are the only ones responsible for what we think and feel. Yes, I'm not saying there's people out there that are doing things, right? Like they're being themselves, doing their thing. But we literally, when you can shift what's going on up here, you can shift what's happening out here and how your point of view of a person is. Because we cannot be responsible for another person. And so, so what happens is if you're growing spiritually, mentally, and you're expanding into this beautiful, extraordinary version of who you really are deep down within. The people that don't match that or are in alignment with it, they will either fade away, go away, um, out of your life. So I know that sounds sad and almost kind of scary, but the fact of the matter is how can you show up for anybody in this world, your family or your loved ones or your community or people around the world, if you're not taking care of you, if you're not being just a little selfish to take care of your emotional, spiritual, and mental needs. Like you've got to really look at that, because I'm telling you, you can't tell me there hasn't been moments in your life where you're just feeling the most alive and like free, and then everyone else around you is like showing up as alive and free too. It's like walking into a meeting or something and everybody's slouched over and they're not happy, and then you come in and you're bright and full of sunshine and you just want to change the world, and they can't help but to show up differently for you. So um, I'm constantly questioning my thoughts, because man, our freaking thoughts lie. They keep you up at night and they will drive you fucking nuts. Okay? So always question your thinking. Your thoughts are a product of your past and they have nothing to do with what you're creating for the, well, I can't say that. You are creating a future from your past thinking. Let me take that back. You are creating a future based on your past, the way you're running your life in this moment. So if you don't want to keep recreating the shit that you don't like in your life, then take a look at the stuff that's running the show in the background. Because I promise you, that's why those patterns keep showing up. That's why you're still not making more money in your life, or why your relationships suck, why your children are running havoc and not happy themselves. They're a mirror of you. So you gotta take a look at the whole thing here. Like you can't just be like shrugging it off. Oh, I'll just watch TV. Like this is for real. This is like these. Think of that. Like our kids are these little human beings that we are creating to be better versions of ourselves in this world. And don't you want that to be like the thing that you can die with, saying, I've done my best? Because if you think you're doing your best, I bet you're probably not, because you will have something to always complain about. Always. And it's those complaints that you have the power to shift. So I really wanted to get back on the same page, tell you where the F I've been, what that journey was, and just share with you, like, I didn't stay stuck there. Yes, I was there for a few months. However, as I started to pull out of that, and how I done that was I started to focus on solutions. I started to focus on what can bring me joy right now. And when I shifted my thinking to becoming that solution oriented person and finding ways to bring happiness to myself, I started to discover things that I used to love that I just stopped doing because I was so busy doing for everybody else. I started adding those back into my life. And those solutions just started to show up for me. And they were pouring out like, okay, so this is how you can deal with this. I immediately started taking action on those things. And then now, today, like I'm taking massive action, recreating my brand and who I am and what I believe in, and I finally realized, like, holy crap, you know what I'm really good at is decluttering people's minds, their business, and their life. I'm a freaking expert in that. It's a common theme in my entire life. I just never had words for it, and now I do. So that's my superpower. And I absolutely love, love, love helping entrepreneurs navigate the processes of becoming a successful entrepreneur, where you are making more money and without spending hours upon hours upon hours like I have done. And I'm bringing all that knowledge into into one program. And so I'm really excited about it. I'm looking forward. Like, I've come in on the past and said, oh, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. But then I couldn't do it. And that's because my self-worth and how I valued my time was shit. It was nothing. And now I've discovered my self-worth. I've set boundaries. I've handled up on removing toxic people from my life, and am powerfully standing in the word no when I need to say no. And I'm expressing in um, a really amazing way how I feel when people do things that are not in alignment with what are my priorities. I'm very clear on my priorities. I'm very clear on what's aligned and what's not aligned. And I would never be able to do that had I not had the kinds of tools and use of modalities, just using the mixed fusion of that. And so my my passion is to be able to share that knowledge and share those tools and help people remove anxiety, to heal shame and guilt, to get past the traumas and get past the things that they are stuck in. So with that said, I just wanted to just say I am really excited about being back, and I hope that you were able to pull something from what I shared with you today. And never give up. Don't give up on yourself. Um, just made me think of, our youth that are committing suicide. They give up. And because they don't know how to work through this here. And we need to be that guidance for them. They need to be able to talk about their stuff, and make sense of all of it. That's where it comes from. They don't have a way to express or talk about and really powerfully work through, or know what their purpose is. Why am I even here anyway? Like, I remember feeling that stuff when I was younger, thinking to myself, why am I even here anyways? I wish I were dead. And I'm glad I'm not. I am so grateful that I said it's not worth it. Like, death is not worth it right now in my life. I have a bigger purpose here. And we just need to remind our youth that they matter and that they're important and that they are heard. That's what's important. And so I have aligned with my values. I have aligned with my priorities. And I invite you to do the same. And the first place to start is by taking a look at, where are you not happy in your life? Where are you not satisfied? Where is it not working? And like, you could have a relationship that's working amazingly. You could have a job that really is working great. You might have your health that's working great, but then you have your relationship with a kid and it sucks. Or vice versa, like one of those areas of your life that has you, frustrated, feeling anxious about money, um, that's where you want to begin to look. And when you discover which area is not working, because look, if you have it working in these other areas, there's a reason why. So why wouldn't you want to put the effort into taking a step back and taking a look at those areas that are working? Why is that working? How is it working? Just really start to question it. And the more questions you ask, the answers will come. They're always there. Like, we always have the answers within us. And they come from God, Spirit, the great divine, whatever you name it. We're all one. And we have all the knowledge that we need to have. You don't need to go out and get another degree or get another certificate. We just got to start looking from within. So that's how I worked through those dark moments, being with the darkness, trusting and having faith that I was going to pull through this that time, right? So I knew, because I have the tools, I have people who support and love me. Um, you know, Reaching out to people is not an easy thing, especially when we're having dark times, or a dark moment in our life, because people spend so much time pretending to live a perfect life when really they're not. They're hurting inside. And so now they're afraid to talk to anybody, or even to reveal to anybody that their life is shit. And then they just sit over here suffering more and more while they keep this facade of living this perfect life that they'll never get, that it's just not perfect. And we're human beings, and we're gonna fuck up. All right. Namaste.